Welcome to Matrescence Unfiltered, the podcast exploring what really happens to your identity, ambition, and career when you become a mother. Matrescence is the transition into motherhood, and it's one of the biggest identity shifts a woman will ever go through. Yet, when it comes to our careers, it's still barely understood. So often, motherhood gets framed as something to push through and bounce back from.
We think it's something else entirely, a capability shift, and we think it's time to name it and to talk about it properly. I'm Rose, coach, consultant, and researcher completing a master's in organisational psychology.
And I'm Bianca, a chief marketing officer, pregnant, and living this experience in real time. Each episode, we take one belief about motherhood and work that doesn't hold up under scrutiny and break it down properly.
Using research, lived experience, and honest conversations about what sustainable high performance actually looks like when your identity is shifting.
Welcome to Matrescence Unfiltered. We're really glad you're here.
Today's episode is a very, very special one. It is our first episode recording postpartum. So, Bianca, I'm going to hand over to you to share your very exciting news.
I feel like I've crossed through a portal and I'm recording from the other side of this experience. And it's so meaningful to be here from it. You know, I'm talking to you from day 7. I gave birth a week ago today, and I have a lot to share about the experience. And it's raw for me. So let's see what emotions come up, what thoughts and feelings come to the surface. I think the best way that I can describe like how I've been feeling, and I said this to my partner the other day, is I feel that at the birth, I was given a new compass. And now I need to learn how to use that compass for the new version of myself and the new kind of gravitational pull of my life, which is my baby, and the fact that everything around me feels different. So yeah, some big things going on, some big feelings happening over here.
First of all, I don't even know how you're going to start to answer this question. Let's always, as always, check in with mom. Like, how are you feeling?
Today, I'm feeling a little bit less shaky than I have, but I have to be very honest and say that the past week has been more emotion than I ever knew possible in more directions than I could have ever imagined. So I'm feeling really happy to be having the conversation. I'm sleep deprived. I'm overwhelmed. I'm still in shock. I'm in complete love with my body is flooded with love and connection and awe. But I'm a little bit of everything, really, is the truth. And I think that's what we should get into for today's episode. I think we should talk about the inner conflict and experience that happens on day 3. What is called and known as the day 3 drop. Because I did not go into this knowing enough about it, and retrospectively learning about it in preparation for our conversation has helped me a lot.
Okay, so I'm really excited to get into this episode and talk about the infamous day 3 drop. And what I think is really important to discuss here is that this isn't just a mood or something that some women mention or might feel. Like, there is a huge hormonal shift that goes with all of this. Estrogen is up to 1,000 times its normal level by the end of your pregnancy. Progesterone is 30 times higher, and then within 48 hours of the placenta leaving your body, both crash to a baseline. So there's no taper, there is no wind down, it is just gone, and it's this huge hormonal crash.
This truth about the postpartum experience is so important to me to be talking about because, yes, I've been living it, but also until I had a good understanding of what had hormonally, metabolically happened to me, I could not make sense of it, and I felt completely isolated in it. And actually, I was laughing with someone the other day saying, this is one of Mother Nature's flaws, really. When you go through this experience, you are awestruck by what your body can do and how everything comes together. It's a miracle. There's nothing, you can tell I'm speechless. There's no words to describe it. But it feels particularly cruel that 3 days after giving birth, you have a crash on this level just at the time when you need to rally and look after your baby and you're vulnerable and you're exposed, and all that's happening and coinciding at once. It just feels like a slight flaw in the system. I did come across an Instagram post that I want to share because it resonated with me, and I feel like it's just good framing for what we're going to talk about. So it says, the postpartum period is one of the most extreme biological transitions in the human lifespan. It's not moodiness, it's biochemical whiplash, and we still call it being hormonal. I think that's an interesting point. When we talk about hormones as women, I think we can be quite reductive or we can feel quite reduced by medical professionals. Oh, it's just hormones. So that's a side point. But as I'm reading that, it just came to me and I thought, yes, talking about hormones can make it feel like, oh, it's just a sex education class in year 9 or whatever. This is so much bigger than that. The post continues. We praise marathon runners for pushing through controlled stress. We celebrate cold plungers for enduring a brief hormonal shock. Postpartum mothers survive a hormonal shift 1,000 times that while nursing every 2 hours. The difference? One gets medals or applause, and the other gets the advice, just enjoy every moment. This is the sharpest hormonal crash the body can survive. It's like being in an elevator that drops 100 floors before you can even grab the rail. You've talked about estrogen, you've talked about progesterone. Our entire systems are rewriting themselves to stop pregnancy and start lactation, all while our organs are shifting back. Our uteruses are contracting and we bleed for weeks. And we have a body that we've gotten to know over 9 months that changes drastically overnight. That's before you add in the sleep deprivation, the absolute awe and love and care you have for your baby, and everything you have to suddenly do with a newborn. It's unbelievable. So when people say they feel like they're losing their minds in the 4th trimester, they are not being dramatic. We're running on fumes, and the level that breaks people in sleep deprivation studies. So we've been living like that since delivery, and I am there. Welcome to day 7, reporting to you live, having survived the day 3 to 5 crash. And reading that post, it did help me, so I wanted to share it here before we get more into what's actually been going on.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant post. And I think what's so interesting that I didn't realize is that your placenta acts as a second endocrine organ.
Brain almost, second brain.
And it
Yeah.
produces hormones that keep you calm, emotionally regulated, and neurologically stable. And when it's delivered, the whole system exits with it. So there is just such a lack of, I think, awareness and understanding. I think it's really unfair to just dismiss it as hormonal because it's what's going on is on a much bigger level.
It is. We're surviving the sharpest hormonal crash the human body can endure. These aren't just hormones. And we as women know what it's like to be reduced down to hormones, just hormones. Oh, it's time of the month hormones. Oh, it's teenage hormones. Oh, pregnancy hormones. This is so significant. And when we finally honor how significant it is and our well-being, we protect the babies that we're raising as well as the mother.
I think this is a really important conversation to have because 8 in 10 women experience this day 3 drop, or what is also known as the baby blues, which just makes it like a cute little nickname for something that's so seismic. So I'd love to hear from your perspective, like how you have been navigating this.
When you give birth, I do think there's a shock that comes with it that is little discussed. And the first couple of days, my body was just in complete shock. I had a newborn baby. I was in complete love with him. I felt amazed. There's a sense of relief that comes because you spend 9 months in pregnancy so worried about everything, worried that if there's any complication, it's your failure, worried about the next scan, the next appointment. So there's a deep sense of relief, but you're also running on complete fumes. If you stay overnight at the hospital, chances are you're in a maternity ward. It's not the best place to have a great night's sleep. And then, of course, when you come home, it's like seeing your entire house and home through a new lens. everything looks different. You are unchanged. I liken it to, you go into the hospital, maybe thinking like, I'm preparing for a flight, I'm packing my bag, I know I'm going somewhere different. You have no idea the destination, and you end up on another planet, and there's no return. You never actually go back home. You're in a completely different stratosphere. So the first few days, you're just in survival mode, pure survival mode. And then day 3, I remember that I was trying to get my son to latch onto my boobs to feed him. And he was like kind of wrestling with it. And it's been really super hot. We're having a heat wave, so that just ups the kind of intensity of all of it, right? And I had my doula come round to the house. And she came round while I was breastfeeding. And she noticed that I was struggling with him latching and with feeding in general. She started giving me some pointers, and I just burst into tears. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that I started crying at that point, and I cried for the majority of the rest of the day. Anytime that anyone would be a tiny bit nice to me, sobbing. Anytime that someone might be like, oh, this can help, I would interpret that as they're thinking that I'm a failure of a mother already. It's day 3, I've already fucked it all up. Anytime my partner would be like tender with me or gentle, I would be hysterically crying because I would feel I'm not worthy of this, I'm not doing a good job. My entire mind was contorted, and it felt like I had never experienced that level of emotion, of self-doubt, of vulnerability. And the hardest part is you don't know when, like, what the bottom of it is, right? You're just living it. And I had friends that say to me, oh, don't worry, your milk's coming, your milk's going to come in. And I thought, I don't know who this version of me even is. I knew I had to meet a new version of myself. I didn't know that it was going to be this much of a stranger. And that's the truth. All while holding my son, feeding him, loving him, wanting to be the best I can for him, and never having felt more insecure in my life about everything. So the day ended, and I was sat in bed. My partner had my son. They were kind of cuddling. They were just getting ready to sleep. And I was just quietly, because I didn't want to disturb them, sobbing with like tears streaming down my face, and my boobs were just leaking all this milk out. And I tiptoed out of the room. I went downstairs. I went to the sofa, and I just grabbed a pillow because I really didn't want to wake them, because sleep obviously is so precious. And I just like howled into the pillow because I felt so emotional and helpless, and I didn't know what it was, and I couldn't control it. And there was nothing that anyone could have said or done to console me. I had to feel it. It had to come out that way. But I felt like, honestly, a wild animal, because that's what we are, animals. Like, we forget that we're mammals, we're animals. This is all natural. But in that moment, the loneliness of it, you can't even begin to explain it. The guilt that you feel, the inner conflict of, why am I crying? This thing that I wanted so desperately has happened. I've got the greatest blessing in the universe. Why am I sobbing like this? What's wrong with me? It's the fullest spectrum of emotions. And then I went back upstairs, and then day 4 was like a little bit less. I would say that it turned for me from a lot of crying to day 4, a lot of anxiety, seeing everything through, oh my God, my partner's going back to work. How am I going to deal with this? I don't really have a support system. What's going to happen? My patchwork's feeling really patchwork right now. My village is not villaging. What am I going to do? Is he okay? Is he breathing? Like, one of the nights I didn't sleep at all because I just needed to watch his little chest go up and down because I couldn't trust, like, the whole thing. And then day 5, I was crying a lot again, but it started to stabilize. And now I'm shaky. Like, I right now I'm having our conversation this evening. Something could just make me start crying hysterically, and I'm trying to go with it But name another experience where you are contending with this level of identity shift, this level of physical trauma to overcome, because your body has just gone through the most significant moment of its life, and the greatest caretaking responsibility you will ever have. It's incomparable.
It's
So
none.
when I zoom out, I think, oh, I'm doing amazingly. Like, we're here. But I am one of those 8 and 10 women. And I know that I need to be exceptionally gentle with myself. But it's been really hard. And so that's the truth.
And thank you so much for sharing and being really vulnerable there, because I know so many women listening to this will find that so relatable and help, anyone who's about to go through it prepare themselves. But I do just want to say as well, like that day 3, like you described the different days and how you felt there, and even day 5 and today feeling a bit wobbly, like that can last from around day 3 till about 2 weeks. And anything beyond 2 weeks, I would advise anyone to feeling that beyond 2 weeks to go and seek some professional help, because that's when it can move into clinical territory and some additional support will be needed. It doesn't just stop. The day 3 drop isn't just on day 3 and then after that you carry on as normal. I think it's great to know that it's coming, but like you said, like nothing could have prepared you for that. And, I wish I could give you a huge hug right now, because you are doing incredibly well. Your little boy is so beautiful and happy and healthy, and you have a partner who's there supporting you. So, you are doing incredible. And I know that sharing that will help so many people.
Thank you. Thank you for holding me in it and giving me the space to share it. And I just want to give a huge hug to anyone who's in it, who's been through it, who's about to go through it. I wish I'd known just how difficult it was. And I wish this is a point about the experience in general. They do say, exactly as you've said, midwives tell you, as part of a long list of checks, being a bit teary is normal, is what I've heard a few times. But if it goes past the 2-week mark, let us know. But the questions being asked about how we're feeling at our day 3 checkups, we have a day 5 checkup, we have a day 10 checkup, is amidst a load of other questions about baby and obviously my own physical health, which I understand, that there's not enough space or time to actually get into when they ask you, so how are you feeling? You say, yeah, because that's how we answer these questions. And it has just got me thinking about how much this is my utopia. As ever in our podcast, we're always imagining what would the ideal be and try and work backwards from there. In an ideal world, there'd be a completely separate mental health checkup where it's not tick box. It's a moment for you to solely talk about what you've been feeling and to have that space held for you as part of those, it could be a mental health team checkup, well-being, whatever you want to call it, on day 3, on day 5, just to say, oh, you're feeling like the worst mother in the world, like you're failing at everything. This is normal. This happens. This is why. And so if this conversation can help someone feel that a little bit, it's so worth sharing vulnerably, because that version of myself that was sat on the sofa, leaking boobs, sobbing, tears and milk just streaming, if she had been able to have an appointment that talked through some of this stuff, and we're so tired at this point, so maybe we don't want to get into everything, but if someone had just gently sat down and said, Bianca, day 3 is here. Hopefully you're feeling really well. But if you have a moment where that you do feel this level of sad, where you can't stop crying, these are just some of the things that might happen that you can expect. They happen to 8 and 10 women, and it's different for everyone, but these are some of the ways that it can, come up. I just think I would have felt so much more, you can never fully prepare, but I would have felt so much less alone in that experience. And it was not mentioned at any point other than, you can get a bit teary, but it will pass. If it doesn't, let us know. That was it. And I get that we have a lack of resources, but my God, I wish that I had just had that. And I'm someone who is honestly in the research and doing a whole podcast on matrescence. And I did not have this information. So it really has got me thinking. And I wanted to share that as just a thought as I've been going through this experience. Because they'll ask me again at my day 10 appointment. And again, I'll say, I've been a bit teary, but the conversation can't go anywhere. So we need more of that. We need mental health check-ins, and we need to let women know that they're not going crazy, or other harsh language we apply to ourselves. This is a natural, normal part of the process, and we need to hold their hands through it.
As you're saying that, although the question is asked, the question is phrased in a way where it doesn't give opportunity for depth. So to get into why you might be feeling like that. So talking about some of the key hormonal shifts. So for example, during pregnancy, your brain produces a neurosteroid that acts on the same receptors as anti-anxiety medication. So although you're going through these hormonal shifts whilst pregnant, that's going to be helping with some of that anxiety, whereas postpartum, that's gone. So again, like having these conversations around why you might be feeling this way, why you might be experiencing that anxiety, the different levels of hormones dropping, the absence of this second endocrine organ, which was the placenta, all of these things would help people. And again, it comes back to like naming and giving people the information. In the last week, the UK has appointed its very first maternity advisor. So I'm hoping that these kinds of mental health checks for women can and will be implemented under her care. And I think it's really exciting, so overdue, but yeah, it's great that it's been taken seriously, finally.
Such great timing, talking about this, thinking about it with that appointment. And I do wonder, as the maternity services are being reviewed and we're looking at structurally, what does good support look like? What is a good check-in? Whether there should be some kind of separation of, they do the baby checks, they do your physical checks, and they can do mental checks too. Like, why can't that be a separate category when we are having those appointments? To have it shoved between, how's your bleeding, how are you feeling, and how, it could be anything, how's breastfeeding going? It naturally, we're not going to be prioritizing ourselves in this conversation because we're thinking about our babies and getting all the information for our babies, but we need help prioritizing ourselves. We need help and encouragement to talk about what we're dealing with mentally, because that is completely linked to our baby's well-being, our physical recovery, and everything else. So I hope that there can be a reframe on that. And going through it, I've been really surprised about how little I have been asked when that has been arguably the toughest part.
Mm, yeah, it's crazy, and I'm really hoping that this new appointment will change that, and women will start to have the care they need. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of it.
Me too. And I think that we all collectively can share these experiences, have these conversations, and hope that it starts to reach the right people to implement such changes, because it's a recalibration like no other. And if you don't understand it, what are you going to do in this moment? You're going to blame yourself. You're going to view it as a failing rather than like this very deep emotional process that's completely natural. And as women, we have that tendency to try and put on a brave face, to question ourselves, to doubt ourselves. And it's such a cruel thing, as I say, the timing of it. And I think also, like, nobody warns you that it will feel like grief. So you've just had a baby, you're supposed to be euphoric, and instead you're crying about things that you can't fully explain why. And it's cruel, it's harsh. And I think it's one of the least discussed aspects of early motherhood. And that's why I wanted to have this episode to talk about it, because the recovery timelines are real and we rarely acknowledge them.
You talk there about grief, and I think that's really interesting because you're right. Like, you're expected to be in this beautiful, glorious baby bubble and be feeling only happy emotions, like enjoy every minute. But there is a grief element to it, and I'd love just for you to share, if you're okay with it, how you've been navigating that the last few days.
The best way I can describe it is that pregnancy is a marathon like no other. And you are so focused on getting to a healthy birth that becomes the center of your universe. Every day you're thinking about that. Every day you're doing what you can towards that. And there isn't much space for thinking about the other side because you can't imagine it. You're going to a destination that you've never been to. There's no map. As I talk about the compass, it's a completely new compass and way of being. And talking about meeting another version of myself, yes, you're meeting a version of yourself that I thought maybe I kind of knew her, but it turns out she's a complete stranger. And I need to get to know her from total scratch. And she is super different. And she's rewired in ways that I'm going to keep having to discover from nothing. It's the beginning of everything. So when I think about grief, part of the grief for me has actually been about not having him inside my belly anymore. So a weird moment was that my partner and him went to get a coffee yesterday. He took him in the pram and they went off, and I sent him a message like, how is he? And then I started crying because I realized that's the first time I've ever had to ask someone else, how is he? I've never had to do that because he's always been with me. And then you start grieving the closest that you had, knowing you're never going to have that in the same way again. And then there's also a anticipatory grief, a forward-looking grieving process, where you realize, I'm going to go back to work. My norm is going to be asking, how is he doing? My heart now lives outside of my body, and somehow I am going to have to exist checking in and relying on people and not being there all the time for him. How can I possibly do this? So it's a mixture of like retrospective grief, forward-looking grief, grieving, all the grief. And it's something that I'm going to keep experiencing. And I think the grief also links to the guilt that we feel. Like, I think they go hand in hand in some way. I don't have enough lived experience yet to comment too much on that, but I can already sense, I can feel as the days go on, okay, this is what mums talk about. That mum guilt, quote unquote, is deep. And it's linked to grief. It's linked to the identity shifts that we have at every phase of this. And it's profound.
I think that's so interesting what you say there around your heart is now outside of your body. You've never been apart from him before. You grew him until he was born, and then you've been with him every moment since. And whilst it's amazing that you get to have some space and your partner can take him for a coffee, yeah, I understand what you're saying there. And I guess as well, like, we talk about returning to work, going through matrescence, the identity shift, and I guess you probably didn't anticipate, I might be putting words in your mouth here, but you probably didn't anticipate thinking about that going back to work piece until that probably got a little bit closer, at least. Maybe like it was 2 or 3 months away. So to be thinking about it within the first week, I think is super interesting.
And I think the center of gravity for me has changed forever. My brain and its perspective on life, its priorities, and my whole decision-making framework is different. And so work, of course, is a big part of that because I'm already imagining, how am I going to do this? How is it going to feel? If they've gone a few doors down, like quite literally, the cafe is like a few doors down from our house, and they were gone for 15 minutes. I know that I'll regulate and I will adapt and I'll adjust, but it was a really alien feeling. It was like a phantom limb kind of feeling, And I am thinking about, how is this all going to work? How am I going to, yes, the balance, but just emotionally be apart from him? And then you have this other thing where you go from the baby's here, everybody's celebrating, everyone's so excited, to, and I'm starting to do this now that I'm getting into like week 2, logistics, planning, paternity leave is over. Now we're going back to our routine and our reality. What does that mean? And you start to realize this massive event, this is my life now. My life is now childcare, balancing, and trying to patchwork it all together. And then you have an identity related grief that comes in too, where you think, oh, every single thing has changed. But that's what I mean when I talk about grief right now in this moment. And I share all that knowing that there's so much more ahead for me.
I think day 3 onwards, like, it's often the moment where that reality lands. So your pregnancy is over. Like you said, you're grieving not growing him inside you anymore. The version of you that existed before is gone. The emotional weight of matrescence is also coinciding with the worst hormonal moment of your postpartum period. Many women are still in hospital on day 3 as well. So, how lucky for you to be at home in your own surroundings. And yeah, hormones, like you said, is just so dismissive, and it doesn't explain why you're feeling any of this at all.
It doesn't. And it doesn't even scratch the surface. And the fact that 80% of women experience this means that it's not an anomaly. This is the experience. It's not this isolated thing, and yet we still treat it as this footnote, this kind of little asterisk at the end of the birth story.
Mm.
So I think it deserves its own conversation. And I just want to hold anyone in that's in it, because I get it. And the placenta point is massive, because actually we don't think about this and we're not taught it. But the placenta has been this emotional support system for 9 months, as you say, and then it leaves all at once. So can I grieve a placenta? Maybe I'm also grieving the placenta. Talking of placentas, I actually have had mine. This was probably the most stressful logistical part of the birth experience, getting my placenta transported to be turned into pills, capsules, and I'm taking them. They only arrived yesterday, so it's quite early days for me to say what kind of efficacy they have. But I'm taking them because I started to feel this actual sense of loss around all of the benefits for me and for my son that the placenta was giving us. And also, we grew this organ. I don't think I was ready to let go. So I take these capsules. It's 2 capsules 3 times a day. They kind of taste like blood. And I also had part of my placenta turned into this like balm and ointment that I can put on him. So yes, I'll have to show you when we next see each other, because it's really, really interesting. But I have been taking it, and I'm trying everything I can. But I think fundamentally, the placenta and its like anti-anxiety properties, I had no idea about that until this conversation. Didn't have a clue.
I've heard so many interesting, and I know there's a lot of data to back up like the health benefits of taking your placenta afterwards. And I know people ingest it in different ways, and pills are often the easiest. But I don't know many people who've done it. So I would love to check in maybe a month or so and see how you're getting on with them. And I think it would be really interesting to share. And obviously, if you like it, we can tell the listeners where you got yours from and if you recommend them. But
Yes.
yeah, I think it would
I
be really.
recommend the service so far. It's called Placenta Practice. It's government approved. They're really, really good. The communication's fantastic. Let's see how I get on. So to summarize, I think that I have been living through the cruelest timing in biology. The greatest love of your life has arrived in the same 72-hour window as the biggest hormonal crash of your life. And then we act surprised when women struggle. Make that make sense.
Yeah, I think the fact that there's just not enough information out there about this is wild. So,
Okay.
as somebody living through this right now, Bianca, what is the term that you want to retire at this phase of the 4th trimester?
Baby blues. It has to be baby blues. What a reductive, awful way of describing the biggest identity shift we'll ever experience. And the idea that it's just this cute little thing of, oh, just a little bit of baby blues, or you're just crying, your milk's going to come in, is quite frankly offensive. So baby blues has got to go. I feel that we have to have proper language for it. Even the day 3 drop, I don't think does enough. Like, I think we need to talk about the significance way, way more. It's the fastest hormonal crash in human biology. Not the catchiest phrase, I'll work on it, but we need something more significant. So good riddance to baby blues. Don't even let your brain get there and think it's just a little bout of the baby blues. Just don't, if you're experiencing it, don't allow that rhetoric to get into your mind. And I hope that this conversation has helped you feel and understand the significance of what you're going through. So baby blues, it's got to go.
I totally agree with you. Like, just even the midwife saying to you, you might be a bit teary, like that is nothing compared to what you've described feeling and what you've been feeling. Like you said, it's a huge hormonal crash. It's that huge seismic shift. So yeah, farewell baby blues. I will not be using that term again, and we need to do more. And I'm hoping that this appointment of this new maternity advisor will do more to support this huge hormonal shift.
And I'd love to hear from people that have been through it in the DMs, just generally on Instagram. Reach out, email, whatever channel you prefer, to share how it was for you. And also, I think it's fun to talk about ideas of what support could be better for women out there. Like, this day 3 drop isn't something that just happens to you and then it's over. It's actually the beginning of the 4th trimester, this neurological transition that reshapes your brain, your cognition, your identity, and eventually your working life. And we treat it like it's a bad afternoon. I think there's so much more that we should and need to do. Let's have a conversation, discussion about what that could look like. Why not?
That, yeah, I would love to hear from our listeners.
Me too, always. Thank you so much for just hearing me in this and holding me through it. More to come.
Thank you so much for being so open and taking the time out on day 7 of your little boy coming into the world. I'm sure listeners will find this so helpful, so thank you.
I am leaking now, so I gotta go.
Okay.
But love you and love this conversation. To be continued. And thank you for just creating this space. Honestly, it's really helped me.
Thank you all for joining us today.
If you've taken something from this episode, we'd be so grateful if you shared it with a friend.
We'd also love to hear from you. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And please share your questions, comments, and experiences. This is a conversation we want to build together.
Until next time.